they'll have more influence and get the results they want. But in my view, that isn't a path toward negotiation that gets you what you want. It's simply a haggle, a concessions game that forces you and your counterpart to compromise. Positional bargaining isn't all bad. It can be quick and efficient. It requires little preparation other than knowing what your opening offer is, what concessions you're willing to make, and any threats you might use. And in the end, it always feels as if you got something, because if your counterpart played his role, then he conceded as well. In fact, positional bargaining works well when you are negotiating simple transactions that have low stakes and you don't care about your ongoing relationship with the other party. Think about agreeing on a price for that leather couch off Craigslist. But this approach can be dangerous. In almost all business negotiations, requesting a raise with your boss, resolving a conflict with a customer, convincing others of a change in policy, agreeing on a budget for next year, for example, there is a lot more at stake, and chances are strong that you'll need to continue to work with the other party going forward. If you were to try to use positional bargaining in those situations, you wouldn't get impressive results. You have to be able to stand firm and maintain important relationships. Positional bargaining rewards stubbornness and deception. It often yields arbitrary outcomes, and it risks doing damage to your relationships. Most importantly, it causes you to miss the opportunity to get more value out of the negotiation than you originally expected. In other words, you won't be creative and find ways to expand the pie because you'll be so focused on exactly how to divide it up. Perhaps most dangerously, there is an underlying assumption in this approach that you're in a zero-sum game. If you gain something, the other party has to give up something in return. In the vast majority of negotiations I've worked on, there is always more value to be created than originally thought. The pie is rarely, probably never, fixed. To negotiate more effectively, you need to shift your approach away from this combative and compromising approach and toward a more collaborative one. For example, instead of asking yourself, "What am I willing to give up?" you might think more creatively and wonder, "What are different ways we can resolve this?" This helps ensure you aren't shrinking the pie, but expanding it. Throughout this guide, I'll offer advice on how to make this critical shift. And here are more examples of how to reframe key questions about the negotiation with this approach in mind. Instead of asking, "What do you want?" ask, "Why do you want it?" Instead of, "Will you accept or will you give up?" try, "What are some different possible ways we might resolve this?" Instead of, "How about we just split it?" try, "By what criteria or legitimate process can we evaluate and defend the best answer?" Instead of saying, "I understand," try showing I understand. And instead of thinking my strength comes from knowing I am right, anchoring well, and effectively using threats, try thinking my strength comes from being open to learning and persuasion, being skilled at figuring out their motives, and being extremely creative. The circle of value approach. This shift is the foundation of what my colleagues and I call the circle of value approach to negotiating. This is where two parties come together to jointly solve a problem, decide on a contract, create the parameters of a new job, or delineate the conditions of a partnership. Together, they dig to fully understand each other's underlying interests, invent options that will meet everyone's core interests, including those of people not even in the room, discuss